How much do you really know about the best American tank ever? Why does its engine sound like a jet aircraft? How it decimated Iraqi armored units in 1991? And why does none of that matter in Ukraine today? You'll find out in this video as we discuss the development, successes, and failures of what is arguably the most well-known tank of modern times. Let's begin. Tanks showed their immense importance during World War II. Both during and especially after the war, their development sped up rapidly, evolving from simple armored vehicles with cannons into advanced technological machines capable of taking on numerous roles on the battlefield. The Soviets, with their T-62 tank equipped with a 115mm smoothbore gun, were the first to show the advantages of such a design. It was the first tank capable of firing modern sub-caliber rounds with superior speed, accuracy, and penetration power. Faced with this serious threat, Western powers had to respond quickly. By 1963, the United States and Germany joined forces to develop the MBT-70, a tank designed to surpass its Soviet counterparts. However, the project failed, and the two nations went their separate ways. Germany began developing the Leopard tank, while the United States turned to Chrysler and its XM1 prototype with an innovative gas turbine engine. After extensive testing, mass production of the M1 Abrams began in 1979 as the new main battle tank for the US Army. The initial version came with a 105mm cannon, but when the Soviets introduced the T-72 with a 125mm gun, the Abrams was upgraded to a 120mm cannon in its new version. This gun was essentially the Rheinmetall L44, originally used on the Leopard. In 1985, the M1A1 entered service, featuring an improved cannon, a reinforced turret, and blowout panels. But what exactly made this tank so advanced for its time? First, the gas turbine engine gave the Abrams a powerful 1,500 horsepower, allowing it to carry heavier and thicker armor. A gas turbine works similarly to a jet engine, giving the Abrams its distinct jet-like sound. In addition to being much lighter than a standard diesel engine, the turbine can run on diesel, gasoline, or kerosene. However, these engines are expensive and very fuel-hungry. The Abrams uses an average of 900 liters per 100 kilometers, while the Leopard 2, for example, uses between 300 to 500. Another major innovation was its composite armor and advanced ammunition, especially the well-known sub-caliber rounds. These rounds have a core made first of steel, later tungsten, and eventually depleted uranium. The core is stabilized by fins, giving it an arrow-like shape. Surrounding the core is a sabot, which allows it to be fired from a larger caliber gun and maximizes the energy of the propellant. After firing, the sabot falls away, leaving the penetrator to travel at incredible speeds. These rounds can pierce straight through standard tank armor. To counter such projectiles, the Abrams uses advanced composite armor that includes ceramics. Ceramics have a unique strength that dissipates the energy of incoming rounds, deforming and weakening them. By layering ceramics and metal in a sandwich structure called Chobham composite armor, the ceramics absorb and disperse the projectile's energy, while the metal stops it from entering the tank's interior. Surprisingly, despite its advanced technology, the Abrams kept a human loader as the fourth crew member instead of using an autoloader. This choice allowed the ammunition to be stored in a protected ammo rack with blowout panels located at the rear of the turret. This setup is much safer in case of a penetration or fire inside the tank, preventing the entire crew from being killed and the tank from being completely destroyed. The side armor around the ammo rack is heavily reinforced, but the top is intentionally weaker. In an explosion, the weaker top is designed to blow outward, releasing the energy outside the tank instead of inside. This design even protects the engine, letting the tank remain somewhat operational after an internal explosion. Inside the turret, the crew is protected by thick, heavy steel doors that are only opened when the loader retrieves a new round, making the tank vulnerable during those moments. Over time, this system has proven highly effective, significantly reducing crew fatalities compared to Soviet tanks with autoloaders and their disastrous ammunition storage. This difference is clearly seen in Ukraine, where countless videos show T-72 variants with their turrets blown off after being hit. However, we'll also look at how the Abrams is performing there. Next came the M1A1HA, which stands for heavy armor. This version added depleted uranium armor plates as the final layer of defense, mainly to protect against HESH rounds that cause spalling inside the tank on impact. Then came 1991, the moment everyone had been waiting for, the Abrams trial by fire. During Operation Desert Storm, US forces defeated the Iraqi army with surprising ease. The Abrams played a key role in this conflict, going up against Soviet-made T-72s used by Iraqi forces. The T-72M1 had been in service for only 6 years longer than the M1A1 and was far from an outdated or ineffective tank at the time. The US deployed just under 2,000 Abrams tanks against Iraq's T-72s, as well as older T-55s and T-62s. To better understand why the T-72s were so easily destroyed, let's compare some key numbers. The T-72M1, with its best armor-piercing round, the 3VBM7, could penetrate 400 millimeters of armor at 2,000 meters. The frontal armor of the Abrams ranged from 400 to 800 millimeters on the turret and 560 to 600 millimeters on the hull. Meanwhile, the US used the M829A1, known as the Silver Bullet, which could penetrate 650 millimeters of armor at the same distance. This round was used against T-72s, which had a maximum of 400 millimeters of frontal armor and up to 450 millimeters on the turret. For the T-72, unless it got a lucky hit, penetrating the Abrams' frontal armor at a range where the Abrams could strike back was nearly impossible. It would have needed to outflank the Abrams and hit its sides or rear at close range, but trying that in a desert without air superiority was almost impossible. Another key, and perhaps the most important factor, was crew training. Superior reconnaissance, tactics, and technology, combined with total air control, gave the Iraqis no chance to mount an effective defense. But does that really mean Soviet tanks were much worse? Let's break it down. At the time, the best Soviet tank was the T-80UK. It also had a powerful gas turbine engine, 800 to 1,000 millimeters of composite and reactive frontal armor, and shells capable of penetrating up to 650 millimeters of armor. Additionally, it was equipped with thermal imaging for the commander, along with day and night optics. So if the T-80UK and Abrams had faced off with equally trained crews, the outcome might have been very different, but we'll never know. Of course, while the Abrams performed impressively in this conflict, it wasn't without flaws. Its reputation as an invincible tank would soon be tested. First, its gas turbine engine had trouble with desert sand. The air filter needed to be cleaned every few hours to keep the engine running properly. Additionally, the lack of a panoramic sight and thermal vision for the commander was an immediate disadvantage. These issues were quickly addressed in later versions of the Abrams. Following the V1 and V2, important when discussing its role in Ukraine, the most significant upgrade came with the M1A2 variant. However, the Abrams' evolution didn't stop there. The commander received a panoramic sight with thermal imaging, enabling the hunter-killer tactic, where the commander could identify and target the next enemy while the gunner was still engaging the first. This also allowed effective operations at night and in all weather conditions. The turret armor was upgraded with a new generation of depleted uranium plates. The engine was modified to resist sand problems, and new sub-caliber anti-tank rounds were introduced. These upgrades kept the Abrams far ahead of Soviet tanks until the introduction of the T-90M. The M1A2 system enhancement package added advanced gunner optics, further improved armor, and an auxiliary power unit that let the tank's electronic systems run without the engine. This reduced fuel consumption, heat signature, and noise, making it easier to camouflage. In 2008, the M1A2 SEP V2 was introduced to address the dangers of urban combat for tanks. This version was equipped with a common remotely operated weapon station for grenade launchers or machine guns of various calibers. Its fire control system was further upgraded, and the armor received the Tank Urban Survival Kit, with explosive reactive armor blocks to protect against tandem and heat warheads. A phone was even added to the rear of the tank for direct communication with infantry. These upgrades greatly improved the Abrams' protection and effectiveness in all combat situations. The final version, the M1A2 SEP-V3, entered service in 2020 with additional armor enhancements and the Trophy Active Protection System. All components of the tank were upgraded, with some versions reaching a weight of 73 tons while still maintaining excellent mobility. It also introduced new ammunition, such as programmable airburst rounds, designed to be highly effective even against infantry in cover. But why has the Abrams performed so poorly in Ukraine? Ukrainian crews have noted that the armor on the 1990s-era Abrams variants they received is inadequate for modern battlefields. The rise of drones, FPV systems, and powerful air and artillery strikes has made all tanks, including the Abrams, significantly more vulnerable. There are also major technical and logistical challenges in maintaining the Abrams. Besides that, crews are mostly equipped with anti-tank rounds, but since they are used primarily as mobile artillery, they lack high explosive rounds. Ukrainians liked the Abrams' mobility and accuracy and have tried to enhance its protection with improvised cages and different types of explosive reactive armor. However, under Ukraine's current conditions, the Abrams seems destined for destruction, especially as it is a prime target for Russian forces, both for its capabilities and propaganda value. Of the 31 Abrams tanks delivered, photographic evidence confirms that 14 have been destroyed, while Russia claims the number is 20. Despite these heavy losses, the Abrams in Ukraine has been unable to significantly impact the course of the war. Modern anti-tank systems, combined with the tank's shift from tank-on-tank combat to infantry support, have had the same devastating effect on the Abrams as the Abrams once had on Soviet tanks in Iraq. But this time, it's the Abrams that suffers.